Moving on, point 14. Vampires are people. This is something that is sort of there in Twilight, but just not in the same depth. I mean, the main clan that you have in Twilight are the Cullens, who exist in a way that I suppose is possible. They're insanely rich, because one of them has a deus ex mark and a gift of seeing the future. Huh. That's never explained with science, is it? Sorry, I just remembered that one of my main bugs with Twilight is how Stephenie Meyer tries to make vampires and werewolves and all the mythical sort of stuff scientific and plausible. Is that it? Seriously, somebody tell me this, right? If there is genuinely some thing she uses to explain Alice's precognition, or whoever the heck it is who has the precognition, please tell me, because I will be so interested. And I genuinely mean that. I know I probably sound quite bitter right now, but no, they live in a mansion, and you know they've got everything they could possibly want, and they're all happy, and but their life doesn't seem realistic to me as vampires and as people, because okay, let's take just one of my points here. You have the character of Edward. He's a 107-year-old virgin. No guy would live to be 107 and stay a virgin, especially not a guy who stayed looking young and pretty and 17. Honestly. Literally. I know maybe it's cliche. Maybe there are some guys out there who have self-control and stuff. But literally, as your age goes up, your expectations go down. It sort of hits the point of anybody with a pulse! And then pulse optional! Which is brilliant for Edward, considering. Does he have a pulse? Is that one of the things that's consistent? I'm not sure, because it's the pulse optional, people! Okay. I suppose my point here is that the idea that he's a 107-year-old virgin is introduced to make the whole true love angle between Edward and Bella seem so much more romantic, because he's never met anybody he would want to share himself with until her. And of course they have to wait till they're married first, because Mormon. But still, it doesn't seem plausible to me. For a guy to live 107 years with nothing but masturbation, there must have been some pretty girl, or boy, possibly, that would have caught his eye. I mean, it doesn't have to be a relationship, it doesn't have to be love, it just has to be, you're drunk at a club one night, you find someone who just makes you laugh, or friggin' hell, he's not actually related to Alice, right? Just do her, anything, come on! You wouldn't, it isn't plausible, it isn't sensible, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I have another point here. High school. Nobody would endure an eternity of high school. It's most people's idea of their worst nightmare. High school is 4 years, for me here in the UK, 5 years of secondary school, that's just torture. If you're unpopular. If you're, even if you're popular, I suppose it's not a lot of fun, because then you've got all the school side of it. I mean, for school to be brilliant, you would have to be insanely popular, in which case it would also help to be insanely rich, to have all the latest trendy kind of stuff, and because popularity and wealth kind of go hand in hand. Insanely smart, so you can keep up with all the lessons. I'm describing Bella here, aren't I? Oh dearie me. But no, my point is that most people hate high school. Most people can't wait to leave high school. Most people are so ready to go on with the rest of their lives. And the Cullens, or at least the younger Cullens, live an eternity of high school. They're constantly going to different high schools. And I can understand this if they did so every time education changed. When there were new things being learned. I mean, if the curriculum changed every year, it would be understandable. But it doesn't change that often. I mean, there are certain things, certain staples, that just have stayed reasonably consistent for, the past century or so. There's a lot of stuff you wouldn't need to go over, and you get bored of it very quickly, learning the same stuff over and over again. And you get tired of looking like a smart ass and knowing everything as well. I mean, it wouldn't be any fun after a while. On top of that, there's the issue of the fact that the Cullens are very exclusive in that Bella, I think, is the only person who ever even comes anywhere near them. Why would you want to spend an eternity going to high school, enduring all the boring classes, learning the same stuff over again, when you're going to be a tight, snobby clique who won't let anyone else in? These are people you hang around with, you could be doing anything with. You're practically immortal. You could be off surfing and sparkling in the sunlight while you do so, kind of thing, you know, or in extreme danger sports. I can't think of stuff right now because I have a terrible, terrible imagination, but but there's got to be something better to do than being stuck into high school. And they moved to all these different high schools, but they don't talk to anyone. I mean, I could handle, right, an eternity of high school, going to different high schools, meeting different people, because I have a group of great friends who I met in my secondary school, and it's just to think of all the people I could meet in different generations. Just, you know, the unique, slightly kooky, slightly crazy ones, the ones who don't want to fit in, the ones who are a bit on the edge. But meeting people like that would be fun. But they don't do that, and it just doesn't seem plausible to me, and I've been whining about Twilight enough now, so let's get to the point I'm making, that in comparison, the saga. Vampires are very much people, and not just individuals. The individuals are quite well thought out, but as a people, a community. They have a place called Vampire Mountain, which is sort of a vampire stronghold, and they meet there every 12 years or so. 12 to 15 years, there's not an established point. And they have a group of leaders, a group of elected leaders, because they're democratic, apparently, called princes. It's never established if there's a consistent number of princes. I guess it's just there are whenever, but one of the rules of princes is that one must always be away from the mountain in the event that it is attacked and all the princes are wiped out. So there will be one left over who can then create further princes, because it involves a further siring process. But it shows that the author, Darren Shan, has created rules and laws for these people, and the Vampire Mountain in itself is interesting because it consists of a series of caves inside the mountain which are named after famous vampires. So he's creating history for these people, and then you consider the fact that the history of the vampires is told entirely orally. There is very little that is written down, and that's because vampires live a long time, so the majority of mature vampires grew up in a time where education wasn't mandatory, and where, you know, so they can't read and write. And so the idea is that a generation is coming, you know, Darren's sort of generation, and then people a few sort of, you know, 50 years or so either way of him kind of, you know, are going to be the lot who establish that and possibly bring about written documentation of vampires. I mean, there is a character, Kerda, who maps, and he's mapping the mountain, and just, you know, small details like that help create a world that feels so much more real, and people and individuals and characters who feel so much more real, and that is distinctly lacking in Twilight, at least in my personal opinion.